They then had to decide who would run the company as it reestablished itself in post war Germany. Rudolph was also interviewed by the Americans about his denazification, but his experience wouldn't go quite as smoothly as Addy. It is important to note that Addy served the Nazi regime in the military for 1 year, while Rudolf had remained an active member of the Nazis until the end of the war. Rudolf's past as a Nazi was an issue that he had to address to the interrogators, and he was quickly in a fight for his factory and his future. He foolishly and boldly declared to his interrogators that he had worked for the Nazi Gestapo, but would later retract his statements. These impulsive actions showed a man frustrated by the devastating German loss in the war. He was clearly more emotionally invested in the war efforts than his brother. Rudolph was subsequently sent to an American internment camp. It was while he was there that he began to become suspicious about how he had ended up there. An American told him that he had been denounced by someone close to him, and he suspected that Addie and or his wife Kathy were the originators of a conspiracy. The thought of this enraged him, and a lifelong grudge was born. It was a grudge that would change the Dazzler family and the shoe industry forever. He had long distrusted his sister in law, and it wasn't a stretch for him to think that she was behind it all. Rudolph had always found her to be manipulative and desirous of too much control of the company. He had no proof, of course, but that didn't matter. He told the Americans that his internment had to be from false accusations, and after a year in the camp, Rudolph was finally released and able to return home to Herzogenaurach and his family. During the time that Rudolph was away, Addy went looking for new business opportunities. He began making baseball and basketball boots for the Americans, which allowed the Dazzler brothers to survive during those difficult post war repair days. American sports were a major focus of the company for the first time. Addy and his wife had been running everything in Rudolph's absence, while his wife, Friedel, had to sit by almost powerless, just trying all she could to protect her husband's stake in the company. Addie managed to grow quite a lot as a craftsman and became an expert in modernizing sports gear. Rudolph returned to a very different landscape at home. The Dazzler family villa was requisitioned for use by American soldiers, so the family was now living in the factory tower. The conditions there were close and cramped, which naturally led to emotional clashes and fighting amongst the two families. The brothers would fight about everything from money to control. The breaking point came when Addy was interrogated for an unprecedented second time by the Americans, coming so long after he had already been cleared. It was obvious that someone had tipped off the authorities to issues with Addy's denazification. Rudolph had tried to discredit his brother, badmouthing him to the authorities. The Americans would soon drop the case against Addy, seeing quickly that it was one disgruntled brother's word against another. It was impossible to run a business together after all the post war drama, so in 1948 the Dazzler brothers decided that they had to divide the company in half. The workforce was quickly notified, and the separation began. Rudolph assembled all of the employees to tell them that the brothers were forming two different companies and that they would all need to choose which brother to follow, because once they left with one brother, they wouldn't be welcome to work for the other. It is estimated that about two-thirds of the workforce sided with Addy, which primarily consisted of the shoemakers, while most of the salesmen went with Rudolph. The news shocked the workers, and naturally, rumors began to swirl about the real reason for the split. The most prevalent were rumors of an affair between Rudolph and his sister in law. The employees had a major decision to make. Did they follow the salesman or the inventor? The brothers decided the brothers divided up the materials and machinery and set up competing shoe manufacturing businesses a mere 500 meters apart from each other. Addy started Addidas, and Rudolph founded Puma. The local population eventually got drawn into the conflict. The companies each had their own football club, and the two teams were bitter rivals. Puma and Adidas employees wouldn't even sit at the same table while drinking at their local pub. It's hard to say whether the divide was due to extreme loyalty or fear of being associated with the enemy and being fired. The two brothers and their families never made up, and their bitter feud lasted until the time of their deaths. The two companies did issue a press release in 2009 to announce that Adidas and Puma would come together to participate in their first joint activity since the two companies opened back in 1948. They united to support the Peace One Day organization for its annual Nonviolence Day.